bad enough with the legislative process.
Well, can I open us in prayer, and we'll, whoever kind of drifts in, we'll be glad to have them, so they can join our circle. All right, the Lord be with you. Let us pray. Lord Jesus, for our sake, you were condemned as a criminal. Visit our jails and prisons with your pity and judgment. Remember all prisoners and bring the guilty to repentance and amendment of life according to your will, and give them hope for their future. When any are held unjustly, bring them release. Forgive us and teach us to improve our justice. Remember those who work in these institutions. Keep them humane and compassionate, and save them from becoming brutal or callous. And since what we do for those in prison, O Lord, we do for you, constrain us to improve their lot. All this we ask for your mercy's sake. Amen.
I like that.
Well, I was like, what should I was like, I'm pretty sure there's a prayer for like prisons in the prayer book, and I was like, I hope it doesn't say anything weird.
Yeah.
And then I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is actually really good.
Interestingly, last week, when David led us in our social justice conversation, we talked about the Episcopal Diocese affirmations, and the third one was so appropriate that I felt I wanted to do it to kick us off. And it says that social justice ministry includes acts of mercy or charity, but also must include dismantling institutions, structures, and policies that cause harm and divide us from each other. And it includes repairing the breach by rebuilding systems of justice, fairness, and equity, Isaiah 58. So, that's exactly in line with what we're talking about, because really what we're saying is that we do need to dismantle this criminal justice system. It's dysfunctional, and we need to turn it into a place of healing and education. I mean, people are held accountable for their crimes when they go to prison and jail. So that's a given, and they need to be held accountable. But after that, it's our responsibility to help them change so they're good neighbors. Public safety impacts all of us. We're all afraid of crime. It's going up. It's scary. But we have to engage the public in talking about it and realizing that we're not helping enough people to change their lives while they're in prison and make those messages, get the treatment and the services that they need in order to do it. And the cost of that is huge, not only in terms of crime and the impact on us, but on the people's lives that are not getting the services they need, but the cost. And it's over $100 a day per person who's locked up in prison. That's a lot of money. And I would say to you that money is much better spent on roads and infrastructure in our communities, health, education, all kinds of things, but we're recycling people back and forth through the system. And that rate of 45 to 70% of the people that are getting out are going back in and committing new crimes. It's just terrible. So just very briefly on me, I've worked in the criminal justice system for 50 years in January. I can't believe it. So, and it was a privilege and an honor. I worked primarily in the community, providing treatment services for people as they were coming out and alternatives to incarceration. Just in time. And it was just a terrific career, but I realized that all over the country we do these great programs, but we're not dealing with the core of the problem, which is the criminal justice system. And it became very frustrating. So I retired from the organization that I founded in 1991, and have been working on big picture reform with my business partner, my partner in crime, I call him, Malcolm Gibson. And Malcolm was a successful lawyer and financial advisor for many years, and was invited to San Quentin for a program, and he was blown away at the quality of the men, and he said, I've got to retire, and I've got to work on criminal justice reform. And we met at a reentry council in San Francisco, and just knew right away that we needed to work together. And so we're working on federal legislation, state legislation, Federal Bureau of Prisons, State Department of Corrections, officer wellness in prison, because if we don't change the officers and the trauma that they go through in prison, that ultimately will reduce the trauma for the people living in prison. Nothing's going to change. We're working seniors, very few services for seniors, and it is outrageous. And also a major prevention initiative, so we can go into communities that are underserved and be able to prevent crime from happening in the first place. So we're working on a lot of things, and I invite any of you who are interested. I would be happy to sit down with you individually at your convenience and talk about what your interests are, what your skills are, what your timing is, and we can figure it out. So I just put that out there to any of you. And it is now my pleasure to introduce the wonderful women from Hope Beyond, Celia Furlow, and Jody D'Amato, who are the founders of Hope Beyond, and they're going to tell us about their remarkable work. I'll turn it over to you, ladies.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah, and thank you so much for having us here. We're honored, and we also are excited to share and educate you all too about stuff in the prison system that we're trying to support and fight against and help. And so we'll just kind of start sharing our testimony, because that's kind of how we got into this work. I first met Celia when she was in prison, and we met just by writing to one another. And that was just, you could say it was accidental, but nothing's accidental with the Lord. And so I had a friend who had a prison ministry. This same friend was going into prisons and ministering to the women. Well, she had ministered to Celia for many years, so she asked me, would you like to write to somebody? And I said, sure, I'll try it. And so I started writing to Celia, didn't know anything about her, and we wrote for 2 or 3 years, and during that time, we developed a really close friendship. And it also impacted me to start learning about the prison system and what they went through, and some of the need there. And so at the time though, it was just a friendship, but we couldn't have known really what was going to come of it. And so I'll let you tell a little bit about your side.
So I ended up with a life sentence. I got 15 years to life, did 17 years on it. I went to prison in 2004, got out in 2020. I was convicted of second-degree murder, so I ended up with a life sentence. And about 3 years before I paroled, Jody had reached out to me. And I had my friends, and I had, my family. Actually, I didn't really have very many friends at that time anymore that I didn't just kind of shy away from. I found the Lord in county jail, and I was walking with the Lord my entire time while I was incarcerated. And 3 years before I got out, Jody started writing me, and we just built a really good friendship, because all of a sudden I realized I didn't just have my family to go home to. I had a friend to go home to. I had connections with the church to go home to. I mean, my whole lifestyle was going to be different. And it was very impactful for me while I was incarcerated, because prison is a really dark place. And you could either let prison do the time for you, or you do the time. And I chose to do my own time. I chose to get involved with groups. I chose to get involved with church. I was involved in the dog program. I was doing everything I can to run a good program so that I would get out. Part of being a lifer, I had to go to board, so I had to go before a panel of commissioners to show that I was no longer a threat to the community. And that process is very, very hard, emotionally hard, because they take you all the way back to your childhood and talk about everything you've ever gone through, which ultimately led you to your crime. And then they want to know why, who you are today, what's different about you today, why are you no longer a threat to the community, why should we release you? So it's a lot of showing them who you are. I mean, you could go in there and talk the talk, but these people are trained to know, you're either being real or you're not, and so they know. And so it took a lot for me. I went to board in 2017, and I was not ready in 17. I was still kind of in denial. Drugs were part of my crime. I didn't want to admit that I was an addict at that time. I didn't want to admit I had done what I'd done because there was a lot of embarrassment and shame and guilt to, tell a complete stranger what you just did. And so I got denied in 2017, and I went back 18 months later, and God totally designed that for me because I went back 18 months later before the same 2 commissioners. So they knew who I was then and who I was coming back. And that 18 months, I was like, all right, God, I surrender, I'm done. And I just put it all out there on the table. And I was found suitable. They immediately saw the change in me. They knew that I was being heartfelt, that I was showing remorse, and that I was a different person than I was 18 months prior. So I got found suitable, super excited, thought I was getting out of prison. You have to do about 5 months because it has to do the paperwork. You have to wait the 120 days. And then, so I waited, and 3 days before my 120 days was up, Governor Newsom reversed my suitability, so he took my date from me. He did it to like 35 people during that time because he had just come into office, and he was trying to make a name for himself, like, I'm gonna be tough on crime. So he took all of our dates, and I was devastated. I had to make that phone call telling everybody I wasn't coming home. I had to, tell Mom and Dad I'm not coming home right now. I gotta wait longer. So I had to wait an extra year. And for a couple of weeks after it first happened, I was like, forget it. I'm never gonna get out of prison. I give up. And that's when Jody stepped up to the plate more than anything for me. She constantly was sending me prayers. She was constantly encouraging me. She was constantly telling me, you know what? You're there a little longer for a reason, make the best of it. And so I did. And that year, I focused on working with the other girls in there, helping them do board preparation, help them get ready for their hearings as well. And the COs, which is the correctional officers, were always kind of tripping on me a little bit because they're like, hey, you're helping all these girls and they're going home and you're still sitting in here. I said, that's okay because it's not my time right now to go home yet. And it was okay. And then I went back to board a year later. I got found suitable again, and then usually you have to wait, like I said, the 120 days. They got me out in 61 days. They were like, get her out of here. So yeah, which was good. So I made it home a couple days after Christmas in 2020, and I continued to work with the girls. I continued to stay in touch with them through an app. We'll talk to you about that later, but I stayed in touch with a few people, and they were like, oh, can you help my roommate? My friend across the hall needs some help too, because what we were doing was working. And I was sharing with Jody constantly what I was doing, and here's where we sit today. So,
what impacted me so much too through our correspondence was, it wasn't just me supporting Celia. It went equal both ways. She really was a friend and a support to me, and to watch her character and her strength and her relationship with the Lord was so impactful to me. But also, I have my own past, and really, I should have been in prison too, So just to be on all sides of it it was life-changing for me to think that I could be there too. And I have a heart for these women because they are there. And the lack of resources and services for them is huge. So like Linda was saying, they're trying to help seniors because there's not a lot of services. There's not a lot of services for women either. So when Celia came out and was telling me, she's helping with board prep, she's remaining friends with these women, she just kind of said, this is what I'm called to do. Do you want to do it with me? And I wasn't so sure, in the beginning. But I just we just made some connections, and we just very casually just kind of started going about, okay, what would that look like? And we talked to elders at our church. We got connected with a couple other local churches, and the response was amazing. And so all along, we have felt like a lot of favor, a lot of support, open ears, and just people who do want to learn about it and help. And so we went about getting our nonprofit status, and we just kind of took step by step. Now, all the while, we work normal jobs, and we have families, and we're trying to live our lives, and so it's been difficult in some ways. There's so much time we need to spend on Hope Beyond, and we don't have all that time, but we probably could never have enough time to do everything there is to do. So we just kind of, just one step at a time, and we've accomplished a ton. So so there's kind of 3 phases to what Hope Beyond does. We have the Pen Pal program, and that's where we write to girls, just like Celia and I did. And our mission is, we kind of want to duplicate that. So we have volunteers that come on board. Some of you, this may be tugging at your heart already. We need more volunteers all the time to write to the women. We have, right now, let's see, we are writing to almost 300 women.
It exploded real quick.
There's 2 women's prisons in California. One's in Chowchilla, and then one's down in Southern California. And the recidivism rate for prisoners that have life sentences is very low. I know Linda mentioned it's maybe around a 50% recidivism rate, but that's for the short-termers that go to county jail, and it's just a revolving door. They need help too, but God has called us to the prisons. So we're dealing with women that most of them have life sentences. So they've served.
Or life without.
Or life without.
Life without that we work with as well.
Some may never get out. And we're communicating with these women. They reach out to us first, so we know they want help. And they are changed women. Many of them are walking with the Lord. They want something different in life. So they're reaching out to us, and we begin just by building a relationship through writing and building that trust and learning about what their needs are and supporting them. And then at some point, the second part of our program is the board prep.
Yeah, so the board preparation is basically when they know they're going to board. Most lifers know when they're going to go. They go 13 months prior to their MEPD date, which is their minimum eligible parole date. And so they know, they have a pretty good idea when they're going. In the beginning when we first started doing it, I'm like, oh yeah, 6 months before board, we can start working with them, but it's not like that. People need to start working on this years before they go to board because, you're dealing with trauma. Like for me, one of the biggest things I had a problem with when I went to board is I was adopted. And I had that fear of rejection and abandonment as a child, even though I have a great family. There's still that fear of rejection and abandonment. So then I became very codependent, and I became needy. And so it wasn't until I had to dig into my childhood to figure out that pain that I was dealing with as a little kid, that ultimately led me to end up committing a crime because I was under codependency and all that stuff. So you have to dig way into your childhood. It's not something that you could just do. So we put a curriculum together from my experience with board and some things that we've figured out that are working with the girls, and it's working. We're working with a lot of girls. The girls are getting found suitable right now, left and right. We'll go through the numbers in a minute, but we have so many girls that are going to board just this year alone. This last week, we had 2 of our girls get found suitable. One of them's coming up here, the Bay Area. So there's, the need is so great right now. And one thing about prison's a little fishbowl, literally. And so, how rumors spread real quick? Well, rumors spread real quick, Hey, did you hear about Celia and Jody? They got Hope Beyond. Well, give me their information. And so they're reaching out to us. They're asking their friends that we're already connected with, hey, give them my number. So we get their CDC number, which is like their identification number. We get their CDC number, and then we reach out to them. And so like Jody said, these girls are coming to us. So the chances of, us getting troublemakers is pretty slim because we have a few that are trying to get things, but the majority of them are really fighting because they want to go home. We're dealing with every walk of life in prison. There's a lot of girls in there right now that want to go home, but they're still getting high on drugs, or they want to get home and they're still in abusive relationships within the prisons. So there's a lot of that going on too, but they're really fighting to get their freedom to go home. And unless they're willing to dig deep with our board preparation, they're gonna have a hard time when they get into the boardroom. And so I'm really hard on them right now. Jody's still learning the board process, and so she's done a few, but I'm really hard on them. If I feel you're gonna minimize, I'm gonna tell you, hey, when you wanna keep it real with me, let me know.
Yes. Celia could be, you could be one of those people in the boardroom.
Commissioner.
Because she knows them. She knows their hearts. And those guys in the boardroom, they know what they're doing. Our job is just to help them work through their stuff. And part of our mission too is you're not just working through the trauma of your crime, you're working through all your trauma, things that have been done to you. And so that's part of something we're developing further is counseling and therapy for them. But they're already doing it with our board prep packet. And so it's an intensive, introspective look at themselves, and they have to face a lot of truth, and they are getting a lot of healing. And so, the Department of Corrections, the CDCR is California Department of Corrections. The R means rehabilitation. There's not a lot of rehabilitation going on. So that's where we come in.
Whatever they are.
There are some workshops and classes that they can get, but they have to really want it and go after it. And so by us coming in, we're about to go in and do our first workshop inside the prison in October.
The one I just got out of, the one that I came out of, we actually been invited now to go in October 6th. And I have so many mixed feelings about it. I'm like, I told Jody we're gonna be doing the 2 P's in the parking lot, puking and praying.
I said, I'm so nervous to go in, and she goes, you're nervous.
So for me, it's just the nervousness of, for me, you can't touch anybody. So I'm gonna see a lot of friends in there, a lot of people I've been walking with for 17 years on the yard. I can't hug them, I can't do anything. And so that's gonna be hard for me. And then the fact that I'm leaving them again is gonna be hard, but it's gonna be rewarding.
You'll be happy to walk out of there.
And it's all about being able to walk back out. But, and Jody and talked about it a lot because it's about giving them hope. If I could do it, guess what, so can you.
Yeah.
There's so many different organizations that go into the prison and they do different things in there. So what we're doing is very unique, because one thing I wanted to mention before we go on about the board part is when you're a lifer in prison, people keep everything hush-hush. Like, they don't talk about how to help each other with board. They don't talk about what to do to encourage each other. When a girl gets found suitable, she walks out of the boardroom and the girls are like, hey, tell me what kind of questions the commissioners ask. Tell me what the commissioners want to know. And nobody wants to talk about it. It's just like quiet. And then, unless you hire an attorney to help you with board preparation, you're kind of lost. And, I know that, God's called us to do this and to help to give back with the board stuff because it's so, so needed in prison. And like I said, it was like a fishbowl. It spread like wildfire. We're in both prisons now. I was in CIW down in Southern California, and then the one up in Chowchilla by Fresno. I knew a girl that was in there, and she's like, hey, the girls in here need help too. And so we ended up in both prisons.
So these girls are calling, and we do mock board hearings with them over the phone. And I can't tell you how many times, they break down into tears. They come to some kind of healing realization. They have that aha moment, like Celia did of, oh my God, it's my adoption that caused that root of bitterness in me, or whatever it is. They're having these moments, and then they go into the boardroom and they get found suitable.
It's so rewarding when they call and they go, you're right, I got it. And it's just like, they're coming home now,
And then the next thing we do, we have the pen pal ministry, the board prep, and then when they do get found suitable and get released, then we help them with reentry. Again, there is not enough help. Once they get out, we want them to succeed. As a society, we should want them to succeed. As God's people, we should want that even more. And so we continue that relationship that we may have started 2 years ago, pen paling. We want to continue that long term for the rest of our lives if we can. Mm-hmm. And we have some volunteer pen pals who their girls have gotten out and they've visited them in person. My mom actually is a pen pal. Mm-hmm. And one of her girls got out. We took a trip down south. We visited some of the girls that have been released. She got to meet her girl. It's just such a joyful reunion.
And they call all the time. They text all the time. Hey, how do I get my driver's license? Or how do I do this? Or how do I do that? And so we're putting together a package for them with that. And I mean, like Jody said, it is so rewarding to, I feel like, especially when we do the work prep, it kind of amazes me a lot. These people are putting all of their life out on a piece of paper to us. They don't know who we are at all, but they're trusting the system, they're trusting the process. And so because we get so close during that time with them, we feel like we've known them forever. And so when we have we reunite with them and connect with them, and we do trips. We go to Southern California. We're going to go to Redding in a couple of weeks to go see a couple of our girls. We have a couple out here in San Francisco. But just to be able to see them and connect with them, you hug them and they start crying. You start crying because you've built this relationship with them. And all of a sudden, they're out here with us on this side of the wall now.
Yeah, so those relationships, it's just as important after they get out to carry that on. And if we have some in this area, if we are able to welcome them into our church communities, that's another thing we're trying to do. And we just continue that relationship, and we help guide them, with the decisions they have to make, pointing them to jobs, social services, education, and then just relationship.
I just have to add, this is all donated. They don't have money to do all this. They are doing this on their own. They're both working full-time jobs to support themselves. So we have got to figure out a way. It's remarkable how much you're doing.
Yeah, it's encouraging just for us to sit here and say it all in one sitting, because from day to day we forget. We're like, oh, there's so much to do. Oh, I don't have time for this. Oh, we have to do this. So it's actually encouraging for me right now to hear, all that we're doing and all that we've done. But it's true. Our goal, of course, is to be able to work for Hope Beyond full time, give up our jobs, and be able to really just throw ourselves into this. And we just have so much vision and see so much potential. And we've got just a few little stats real quick. We've got over 60 women that have been released. We're still in contact with half of them. Some will choose not to contact us when they get out, which, that's going to happen. But the half that we are in contact with, we are great friends with them.
They do really well. They have jobs, they're in school. One of our girls, actually one of the very first girls that we worked with, she came out here to Treasure Island. So she ended up in a program in Treasure Island. And she's actually now working for San Francisco County as working within the probation department. So, you can get out and you can succeed. The girls are doing good. I was in Southern California, jobs, they're doing really well.
Yeah, they're doing great. We've got girls that have already bought a car, and we've only been doing this 1 and 2 years. So it's really cool to see them thriving, and we just want to help more of them. So, let's see, what should we? So our needs are definitely funding, and then also for the pen pal program. We have 300 women we're writing to. We've got about 60 pen pal volunteers right now. A lot of them start with just one pen pal because they're just not sure how is this going to go. But it's through an app on the phone, so it's as simple as it's like texting you. It's very simple and easy. We do try to mail them mail sometimes because it's really nice to get mail, but most of it is through the GTL app. So it's probably the easiest way you could make an impact on somebody's life.
Even just a text message. I mean, I remember when I was in there, I would get so excited when I would get mail. We used to call it snail mail. Right? And I used to get so excited when I would get the mail. But I looked so forward to her text. You know, I would get back from going to work, or I was doing the dog program, and I would come in and I had my little tablet, and I was like, oh, I got a message from Judy. You know, and then she would write and tell me about her life and how she's doing and what's going on or whatever. You could send pictures through the little tablet. Since I left, and it's only been out for 2.5 years, they've changed it big time now. So the tablets now, you can do a little video, a little 30-second video to somebody. You can send pictures, and it's more like text messaging. When I was in there, it was more like an email. Like you send an email, and then it takes 2 or 3 days to, you know, the person can get it, vice versa. Now it's just text messaging. It is slower than our text messages now, but because it has to go through the person, through the security thing to make sure you're not talking about anything dumb. So it takes an extra minute.
But it's pretty quick. Sometimes you can see the little dot if they're online, and sometimes you can go back and forth, just like a text. But you can also, you know, it's not like you have to text every day. I mean, I don't. I maybe once a week, sometimes but I mean, I'm trying to juggle so many things, but once a week, you could send them a message. You know, it's not that tying down.
Can you talk a little bit about sharing personal stuff and security and that kind of thing?
Yes. Well, I think the one thing that is really important that we always keep in mind is the girls that are reaching out to us are trying to do the right thing. You're going to have a couple in there that are going to be like, hey, can you send me some money? Hey, can you do this? And they're going to try to work you. And then you just, you know, you cut it off. You just let us know and we'll figure that one out. But the majority of them just want to have a friend. You know, just reach out and just, you know, share your life. We don't encourage you to share where you live. You could say I live in the Bay Area, but I wouldn't say, well, I live on, you know, 225 Market Street or something. Don't give me your address right away.
Yeah.
You could share about your life. Talk about, hey, you have this many kids, or this is the kind of job I have, or whatever. You know, I mean, any kind of that's going on. Like I said, the person screens the mail. So if the person starts asking you to get them dope or something, they're going to get them something.
We've never had that.
We've never had that. We've never had anybody ever ask for anything really. You know, so the security wise of it, you know, the inmate, if you sign up on the app, the inmate doesn't know anything about you. All they know is your name.
You do have to make an account,
yeah, you have to
but they're not going to see your personal information. They're going to know your name. We're building trust both ways. And so, you know, after you get to know somebody, some of our pen pals are okay with giving them their mailing address. We have a P.O. box, so you can have them mail you stuff to our P.O. box. It's not something you have to do right away anyways. But it's just, yes.
Do you have a training program for people doing this? Because it seems to me things like questions like confidentiality and a lot of things you're talking about would require some pretty intensive training. So
yeah.
We have a packet actually about the do's and don'ts, the things to not, you know, to do, things that you can do. You know, it's not as hard security-wise as you think. You know, I mean, if you're just building a relationship with somebody, getting to know them, encouraging them, and stuff like that, it's not as hard to do that part of it. You know, when you send snail mail, you have to be a little bit more careful because you can't send things with stickers on it because that's how they get the drugs in. And so there's that kind of stuff, but those are just kind of common sense things that, you know, we'll go over with you.
Is that why they don't want you to put a sticker return address on it? Is because I tried to.
Yeah.
That's the reason.
Yeah. Because they put drugs
They
in
can
it.
hide
I
stuff.
had no idea.
They said
Because
they take
Because
the,
I had a sticker.
yeah, they take the label and they can submerge it in drugs and then put it on the envelope, and then the girl gets it and she eats the sticker.
I had no. Thank you, Marjorie.
Yeah. But overall, yes, everybody has the same questions, so we do want to answer those. But really, we want to educate you guys that it's not as scary as you think. This is part of the problem, is most people do not understand prisoners, the system, and what's going on, and they're human beings.
I mean, do I look like I committed murder?
No.
No, I mean, seriously, do I? I mean, I did. I mean, I was involved in drugs, and I was around the wrong group of people. And I made a terrible choice to do what I did. But number one, God's forgiven me. And I've grown past that, and I've moved past it. And so I'm an upstanding citizen today. I mean, I drive with a license. I have a real car. I'm not have money in my pocket. I mean, I'm not doing, I rehabilitated myself. And the girls that are getting out, they are rehabilitating themselves. One thing that I learned in prison, you can't let your past define you. And that was the biggest thing for me, because that guilt and shame can keep you captive. But guess what? Move past it, because what you did, you're done. And so that's why we don't judge these girls. I don't care what your crime is. It doesn't matter to me what you did. If you're changing and you want to grow and be a healthy person today, I'll walk the journey with you.
Can we talk a little bit about the women when you're meeting them outside, when you're getting out, what they do and don't have?
Yeah, they don't have much. So they are required to go to a program if they're lifers in parole, and the state supplies that. They don't have to pay for the program. The programs are supposed to do certain things for them, but unfortunately, most of them are not, and it's not being enforced. So that's why we're helping them with guidance. But we also, some of them get out with nothing to wear, or no shoes, or no transportation. They get out with $200, and that will last them enough to get something to eat and get to where they need to go. So we're trying to work on providing rides for them, giving them, so there's other ways that you all can help. We give them a backpack of just kind of necessities when they get out. We have clothes that we can give them. So they have nothing. They have nothing. Some have no family and no friends. Some can't go near their family or friends. So
that's a key right there. That's a key right there. A lot of girls are getting out and they don't want to go back to their old stomping grounds. And so we're noticing a lot of girls are like, hey, you and Jody are a great support to me. What programs are up in the Bay Area, so that we can be closer to you, so that they have that support network. So we're working on building that support network for people. Like I said, I did have my family, so I did come home to my clothes. My parents held on to my vehicle the whole time I was incarcerated, so I had a truck to come home to, even though I got rid of it the next day, but I did have a truck to come home to. I needed a fresh start, so I got rid of it. But, I have that. These girls, a lot of them don't have it. We went down and saw one of our girls in Southern California, and we asked her, what can we do for you? And she said, you know what, can you guys just buy me a Big Mac?
yeah, she just wanted McDonald's.
That's all she wanted was McDonald's. So we went to McDonald's, we got her a Big Mac and French fries, and we taped it. I taped it on my phone. She cried like a baby biting into that Big Mac. Because it was just the little things. One thing that for me I really learned in prison, Jody laughs about it with me all the time, is when I first got out, I was phone crazy with pictures. I took pictures.
She still is.
Whatever.
A lot of us are.
They don't know how to use a cell phone.
Yeah, it was a foreign object to me when I got out, because the little flip phones were just coming out when I got arrested. So when I got out and I got handed this thing, I was like, what is this? It was a little mini computer. So the girls are getting out, they don't know how to use phones. They don't know how to
They need a phone. That's another thing
Yeah,
that
they need a
we're
phone.
trying to supply for them. Because you can't do life without one. as you know. And we have to, we're trying to figure out how to teach them. We're like, you're just gonna have to ask the other girls in your program, It's such a hard thing to learn. We've all learned gradually, but they're trying to learn this thing, and we've had girls crying because I don't even know how to answer the phone, and so, but everybody, you have to have it to live. And so that's just another little hardship that they face when they get out.
It's big. It's the challenges, and it's the daily things, they need help with getting their food stamps situated. They need help with getting their Medi-Cal situated. When you first get out of prison, they should provide that stuff for you, okay? They should provide you to have, do the paperwork to get your Medi-Cal started. Do the paperwork to get your social service so you can get your food stamps started. That type of stuff, the prison's not doing it. They're basically like, okay, here's your release date, see you later. Yeah. And so now they're coming to us like, I don't got a ride, how am I gonna get to the program? How am I gonna do this? How am I gonna do that? It's scary enough to get out after 27 years in prison, but to get out and not know public transportation or anything. We would love to drive down and pick all our girls up and bring them to the program, but again, we both have jobs. Yeah. And so Hope Beyond is not our primary, when it becomes our primary and we get paychecks and we can have salary through Hope Beyond, everything will change. And then we'll be able to go for these rides. We'll be able to go pick these girls up. We'll be able to take them to social service and hang out with them at the DMV and help them get their ID. We'll be able to do that stuff with them.
What is your hope for timeline, other than like tomorrow, to be
fully funded?
Yeah, where are you at, and how are you fundraising? And who's doing that?
Yeah, all of these things are just little by little, along with everything else, because by trying to communicate with the girls, that of course is our #1 priority. And then we are going to hold our first annual fundraiser in the spring.
Which you'll all be invited to.
We've done quite a few little church presentations like this, so that's one way we're raising funds. We're trying to become mission partners with churches so we can get monthly, we're trying to increase monthly donorship. So mainly just presentations similar to this is so far what we've been doing for funding and just getting the word out through churches. But we've got more plans coming up. It's kind of what we have the capacity for.
And this is one of the things Malcolm and I are working on. We're trying to get Department of Corrections to pay these women for what they're doing.
Right.
The services are absolutely excellent.
So we are pursuing grants and contracts, and Linda's kind of helping guide us with that. But all of this is, we're just treading on brand new ground. We don't even know what we're doing. But we are pursuing grants and contracts. It's not that easy to get. So we really need a strong donor base, and you actually have to have that in order to get grants. So we're working on establishing all that. There's other donation opportunities that, is that what you're handing out, Seal?
Yeah.
Specific amounts for things like the trips we take. If you have a gifting in an area where we need help, grant writing. Right now we need a video editor. Things like that can also be donated as services.
If we bought some of this nice stuff, if I went to Marshall's and bought some of this, I send it right to your Dublin address, is that correct?
Yeah, or we can, figure out how to pick it up. We have, the parolee packs, that's what Amy's talking about right now. We would love for you to fill a backpack with these items. So when the girls get out, we give that backpack is full of necessities that they need. That's another way you can help out. We give them gift cards. There's a list of different ones so they can go buy clothes and go get something good to eat. The nutrition in prison is terrible, terrible. They just are treated inhumanely in many ways. Their medical care is terrible. So we're not going to get into all that right now. We just want to care for these women and do what we can for them. So on these, there's some different ways you can help out. a one-time donation, becoming a monthly donor. I mean, all of these things are needed. If you want to become a pen pal, we do have the guidelines here that we go over. We usually hold a separate training session, like you were asking about. We are happy to come back and do that, or do a Zoom one. We've done that before too, since we live on the other side of the bay. But we're happy to answer more questions today. I'm not sure how much more time do we have, Linda? Yes.
We have a member of this foundation, a senior program officer of the foundation that I think would be very interested.
Oh, really?
And so, after this is over, we'll see how, I mean, if she was here today and hearing the story, I think she'd be coming to you.
Wow.
So,
Who's that?
I won't talk to you about that.
Thank you.
I didn't get the first part of this.
What was the first part of your sentence?
Hmm?
Who were you referring to?
I prefer not to.
Oh, I missed your words. Okay.
Oh, we have a member of this congregation
Oh, okay.
who's a senior program officer
Oh, that's, okay.
at a foundation that I think would be.
That would be awesome, yeah. If you have any connections.
Linda Bryant Stevenson at EJI,
Resources.
love your stuff.
That's a great idea.
EJI stands for,
This is part of this, just sort of brainstorming, thinking about it, and getting back to me.
Equal Justice Commission in our hometown. Brian Stevenson is huge. He just did a health thing in Alabama, bringing health services to prisoners. I mean, he would love this. You ought to get him in touch.
Yeah, a lot of it is, it's connections, right? Because we were invited to a program here in the city, GEO, and just to hear resources. And that's where we met Linda, and then, so it's just networking, you know, and then Linda introduced us to Malcolm, and then Malcolm has introduced us to some of his people. And so we have another presentation we're planning with Jen at her church. So it's about networking too. So that's another way we're just trying to expose the ministry, educate people, get supporters, and we're just so thankful you guys heard us out today. So if you have any ideas or suggestions for us, yeah, we would love to talk to you. And so we've got a lot of stuff up here. So we've got the guidelines for corresponding with the women. We've got our brochures and cards, and then we already handed you the donation. So contact us anytime. Our phone numbers and email is on the cards.
Yeah, all of our information is on the card and on the brochures. You know, if you have any other questions, of course, you know, Linda would be a good connect. You can talk to her. You know, as far as any kind of donations, if you want to physically donate clothes or backpacks or something, you can gather everything together and give us a call, and we can come out and pick stuff up. Or, you know, we are in contact with Linda, and we are in contact with Malcolm as well. So, you know, there's that. Yeah, whatever you need, whatever you'd like to do, we are 100% available.
Where's your church? Sometimes we'd like to collaborate with other churches. Do you mind saying your church?
It's in Pleasanton, Valley Bible Church in Pleasanton. Yeah.
That's a little far.
Yeah, it is.
But you never know.
You're right. We're trying to get into churches even in Southern California because one of the prisons is down there. So we want girls to have connections down there. So we don't have the capacity for that just yet, but we do have some connections. So, but yes, we have seen greater purposes in all of this. And part of it is that churches get unified.
Yeah.
And because really we're all one body. And so that's been exciting too.
Well, the Episcopal Church is particularly well connected because that's their whole is being part of a diocese.
I actually did a presentation down in San Jose where my niece's grandmas are. They invited me to their church, and it was in San Jose. And I basically was going to just go in because they wanted me to do my testimony about being in prison and, you know, where I am today. And then the morning of, she's like, you got to talk about Hope Beyond. You just got to talk about it. And I'm like, okay. And I was a little upset because I wish I would have known I wanted her there for that because we do it together. But I did. I talked about it. They weren't interested in being pen pals or anything, but they did definitely help us out with donations and you know, several people in the congregation sent some checks, and which, you know, that's a huge blessing to us. So it's the time-consuming stuff, you know. I mean, we worked yesterday for just 5 hours, or 4 hours, you know, just preparing for today with you. And so it's time consuming and, you know, like I said, we have jobs and everything, so it makes it a little bit harder, so. But we'd love to hope you have to be full-time and that's all we would be doing.
Well, some of us have to leave, so I'm going to go to church. So I'm going to give you a round of applause.
Any other questions?
Yeah, does anybody have any questions, the ones that can stand a little longer?
I just have one recommendation. There are a lot of groups like Behavioral Health Directors Association. And I would suggest, you know, like finding some key groups and mailing them, you know, little teasers about what you do. Because within those groups, those people search for money and they're connected with, you know, criminal justice projects. And even if they didn't respond to your first letter, they might respond to your third letter. They all have conferences, and they follow the money, you know. And I can send you a list of some. Sometimes it'll feel like cold calling, but then you get the return phone call from someone that says, "We'd like you to speak," or "We're having a conference."
Yeah.
And would you come down and participate in the coffee or something?
Yeah, if you have a list of those, that would be great. That's part of what we're working on with businesses right now that have community funding programs. So same type of outreach. Yeah, we would love that.
Yeah, and they know the funding is there.
Okay.
So
That's very
I'll send you a link.
Okay, yeah.
They gotta change that.
I don't know whether this is a visual statement.
This is the organization you're speaking of? Are you a part of it?
That's okay. No. You're fine.
Because here.
I never got together and set it up.
Oh.
Thank you so much. I would like that.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Do that.
Thank you for coming, welcome. Thank you.
I mean, I wish we did, but it's, yeah, there is. Still out there, you know, but it's something that is on our, you know, kind of got our mind, so hopefully we can participate in that.
No strings attached except to say, here, and then this is for outreach. And they chose not to just sort of add it to type. Okay. They just said, that's, okay, we're gonna use this money. $20,000 sitting there. That's so cool. And I can tell people, it's actually At the wishes of the donor who is still a member of the family. Just like when somebody dies, it makes it look like it's like, you know. So I'm just saying, I'm great at
Yeah, so it needs somebody, I know you asked us at one point, would
You
any
know,
of
or
our
I don't even assume, right, so that's part of our story to.
Will you be able to kind of?
And I know they would, they also are thinking of a lot when they get out.
If I could, okay.
So,
I mean, I don't know,
it is something we'd like to take part
community
in.
has some point.
That's what I mean, like we changed the name, we should forget it, but so we're just still listening, new outlook is listed as a line item.
But it
in
could
our-
be something we get involved with.
Okay, I better go.
Go to church.
There are some, the ones that aren't lifers, the lifers, they have to go to a program, and so CDCR tells them where to go. The non-lifers have to know where to go. And we've had problems with that.
No job.
Yeah, we need,
No job.
with the grant, right?
And, but with job training,